Hi.
Hi.
Long time no see.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, do you want to
On
talk
that
about this
note,
episode?
let
You ready to
us
laugh your ass off?
begin the insanity. The insanity, Brittany.
It's okay. Okay. There's a lot of things that are insane. I want to talk. Okay, let's introduce whatever, but I want to talk right off the bat about who the director of this episode
Okay.
is. because
Stop.
OMG.
Stop.
OMG.
Okay. Everybody, welcome to this episode of Squintcast. My name is Kelly.
And I'm Brittany.
And today we are going to be talking about Bones Season 3, Episode 15, called
The Pain in the Heart.
This, my friends, is a season finale.
Da 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 da.
Finale.
Will we find out about Gormagon? Gormagon.
No spoilers. Okay, tell me who directed this shit.
So,
Who we
this
got?
guy named Alan Croker directed this episode.
Oh my god! I love him!
Yes, so he is also the director of the series finales of Star Trek Deep Space Nine,
Yes.
Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Enterprise.
What else has he directed?
Tramp at the Door. I've never seen it. It's just on this page.
What Bones episodes?
Oh, Bones. Yes. Let me tell you. I thought you wanted
If it's
to
who
know
I
some
think it
exciting
is.
things. Oh, yes. The Man and the Bear.
Yes! Yes!
Also, Two Bodies in the Lab.
Woo!
The Man in the SUV.
Who cares? Man and the Bear!
The Girl in the Gator.
Oh my god, these are classics.
The Soccer Mom in the Minivan.
Oh my god.
And now this one. And then he goes on to direct one episode in season 4 and 2 in season 5.
I cannot.
I thought you would like that.
I'm so excited. I knew there was something going on because and when you said it was him, I was like, oh my god, Man and the Bear. It's my favorite episode still of all time, number 1, Man and the Bear. Everybody knows it.
Still?
Kelly, shut the fuck up. Oh, 100%. The next one though is Intern in the Incinerator, because you know I love that one.
Okay, fair. That is a good episode. I like this episode, but there's a lot of anyway, we have to talk about why at the end of the episode. But and then get ready to lose your mind. A guy named Stephen Nathan.
Okay.
Who is actually one of the showrunners. So he is him and Hart Hansen, they're the showrunners, right? So
right.
He actually wrote this episode along with 23 other episodes in all 12 seasons, but he wrote Two Bodies in the Lab. He wrote Soldiers on the Grave, The Man
Soldier
in
on
the
the
SUV,
Grave. Man in the SUV.
Mother and Child in the Bay, Headless Witch in the Woods.
Your favorite.
That was I hated that episode. The Glowing Bones in the Old Stone House.
Oh my god.
And then this one.
I'm very curious. I'm very curious about how Alan Croker, is that his name?
Alan Croker
and Stephen got along, because they are very different. And I feel like, and because you told me who the writer is and what they wrote in the past, it explains the tonal shifts, the weird tones in this episode. It's very odd. And we will talk about it, because there's some shit going down that I'm like, you are not reacting appropriately, my friend.
Yes. Okay. I agree. Also, just general, like, there's a couple things that I'm like, This is a red flag. Why is no one reacting to this?
Okay, well, we're not going to get into that right now. We're going to start by talking about this insane episode, this season finale, shortened season finale episode.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to hear who your king and rats are.
Okay.
I can't wait. Don't tell me now. Don't tell me now.
I won't.
All right.
Okay.
Start us off, Britt. Come on, let's do it.
So first of all, let's just remind our listeners where we were at the end of the Wanna Be in the Weeds, the last episode that we talked about. And that was Boons is what I was about to say. Booth was shot by a lady named Pam Noonan, who was a wonderful, wonderful psycho stalker lady. Well, Brennan was just trying to say girls just want to have fun. So now we're on the opposite end of that. That has passed. Booth has passed. Booth has passed. Booth has passed.
Oh my God.
So we are headed to, and by we, I mean the lab people, the squints, are headed to Booth's funeral. I can't speak tonight. This is going to be a fun episode. They're headed to Booth's funeral. So we have Zach, we have Brennan, we have Angela, Cam, HODGINS, Sweets. Except Brennan has no intention to go. She's there and she's trying to identify some like 500-year-old bones. And she's like, I need to do this now for this family. And Angela's like, I'm pretty sure they've moved on. It's fine.
They're okay.
Brennan, you're fine. Angela pulls Brennan aside and is like, I need you to be there for me. Can you do this for me? And somehow that convinces her to go, even though she's really upset because Booth has passed away and she
as if she wouldn't go.
Can't accept it. No, there's no way.
There's no way.
It's ridiculous. Anyway, Sweets is trying to explain her behavior. He does this whole episode. It's really annoying. Trying to be like, it's someone's close to you. I understand why you'd be reacting the way that you are. Blah, blah,
like
blah.
STF to F you. Okay.
Seriously.
STF you, Sweets. Like, step off. Leave me alone.
Stop trying to understand me, Sweets. So they go to a funeral being held outside at a cemetery. I guess this is they're holding the funeral at the burial, I guess is the idea here. And Caroline is the one who's giving a eulogy. And at this moment, when I was watching the episode, I texted Kelly, wow, I never noticed that Caroline has such beautiful eyes. Did you notice?
Oh yeah, she has very light colored eyes. It's very nice for sure.
Like light green. Anyway.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the episode, everyone. Her eyes are beautiful. Anyways, so do you want to talk a little bit about this scene because it's quite humorous?
We're at the funeral.
Yes.
I just want to say there's barely anyone at this funeral. Okay.
Where's Parker?
Okay. Where is his son? Where is Rebecca? Where's Cullen, his boss from the FBI? Was Agent Charlie there? Was Greenman, the FBI forensics dude there that's always on the scene with the glasses on?
No one.
No one we know is there except for these jokers from the lab. And while Caroline's giving her eulogy and being very eloquent, Brennan is having these outbursts and like commenting on the eulogy, like, which is so inappropriate.
Oh,
anyway,
so bad.
I didn't recognize anybody at this friggin' funeral. Regardless, there's going to be this 21 gun salute. They have all these guys dressed up in their military uniforms with their rifles. And lo and behold, there's this weirdo that the camera kind of pans to. Our friend Alan, the director, pans over to this weirdo at the funeral who's carrying a single rose. He's being sort of suspicious. And then what's that? What's that, Brittany? I see a very familiar face.
Who could it be? Could it be
wearing a hat and getting a rifle, ready to shoot the rifle for the salute? It turns out it's friggin' Booth.
Which obviously it is because
obviously because as if he's dead from one shot to the friggin' right shoulder. Come on.
we know that he was not dead too because we have the benefit of not watching this as it was being released. And
also, there's 12 seasons of this show. And that's what Greg goes. Greg's like, he's not dead, right? Like, there's a whole show. Like, I said, no, Greg, he's not dead. Anyway, he ends up, Booth drops a rifle, starts chasing this dude. They have a fight. Boom, boom, boom. He starts to get the upper hand. They hit the coffin that allegedly has Booth's body in it. Of course, the coffin falls over. This dummy falls out. Brennan grabs one of the limbs that has fallen off his dummy to help Booth out with this fight and knocks the guy clean out. And then Booth goes, oh, thanks, Brennan. Good shot. And then her face, she looks at Booth. She's so mad. And she goes over to him and she slugs him right in the jaw and he falls to the ground. It was pretty wild. She storms off.
So awesome.
Also, oh, my God.
Zach and Angela are too much. Angela is like, what the hell is going on? And Zach just turns to her and is like, they appear to be fighting. I'm like, yes, Zach. Great observation.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Anyway, it's very exciting. So thank God he's not dead.
Thank God he's not dead, but he deserved that shot to the face. How does she not know that he was not dead? I mean, that leads us into our next scene because Booth is basically chasing Brennan, trying to keep up with her back in the lab, walking out of Brennan's office, and he's explaining how he told the people at the bureau that he gave them a list of people that were supposed to be informed that he was actually not dead and it's not his fault and blah, blah, blah. And HODGINS is there and Cam is there and Angela's there and Zach is there. It's like a whole thing. She's just going, she's like basically ignoring him, trying to just go onto the platform, swipes her card. And and it's just like ridiculous. Like he's just trying to explain it away.
I know. They're bickering. And this is where he finds out that she wasn't going to go to his funeral, even though she thought he was dead. He's like, you were going to go to my funeral? Like, it's so funny.
And he's like, oh, I thought you weren't crying because you knew I wasn't dead.
Because you knew I wasn't dead.
So not only was she not going to go, like not only was she not crying, but she just wasn't even going to go at all.
And then Sweets does the thing where he's like, oh, you guys, she punched you because she has passionate feelings. And she's like, fucking shut the fuck up, Sweets.
Yes, 100%. He's like, he is so obsessed with their relationship.
Oh my God.
He's being a bit much in this episode, but that's fine.
I agree.
And then Zach is like, out of nowhere, is like, Dr. Brennan, someone left a package for you.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, they open this package that's addressed to Dr. Temperance Brennan, and inside they find a mandible and 2 silver screws. So speculation, Gorgonzola is back.
Gorgonzola has returned.
Bum 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 bum.
Finally.
I know. When was the last time we had a Gorgonzola
so long
episode?
ago?
It's
so
ridiculous.
Long ago.
Because this is the serial killer that's supposed to be the arc for season.
First, then we have our intro, just like you alluded to, with a bum 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 bum.
Oh boy.
Okay. So they have a cannibal secret society serial killer running around killing people. How long has it been?
I think it's been like a year of this.
Where's my phone? I'm trying to find out what the last episode was, because that's crazy to me. Like, there's no sense of urgency about this whole situation.
Like, sense of urgency / is the last episode that we saw that had him in it, or sorry, that had Gorgonzola in it, was when that guy who was like, I don't need your protection, in his big mansion got
It was
taken.
Night on the Grid.
Was that Night on the Grid where he's
Night on the Grid has to do with Russ was facing a parole violation when Amy showed up. Fucking Amy. Remember Amy?
and her cystic fibrosis?
Oh my God.
Yes.
I'm just looking here. Oh yeah, because remember she goes in her house and there's blood all over the envelope and shit.
Yeah.
I barely remember that episode. It feels like it was 17,000 years ago.
It does feel like a really long time ago. Okay. Yeah, the Night on the Grid. Oh, I forgot about that episode. Because
me too.
The last that I remember, that what was he called? He was like he wasn't a lawyer. He was some politician.
Oh,
that he got taken at the end of the episode. That
he's a lobbyist.
Yeah, so the intern, Gorgonzola's intern, was waiting, or not intern, apprentice, was waiting inside the closet for him.
Anyway, so we'll talk about the closet guy later, but regardless,
yes,
we have ourselves a Gorgonzola episode.
So how has this not been all over the news until now? It's just now that Sweets goes on the television, and he is talking about how this is the 5th known victim in the Gorgonzola murder, blah blah blah. But they already knew that this guy was in the wind, like he was missing.
I don't understand what purpose this serves. Interviewing Sweets. Like, wouldn't an FBI PR person be doing that? But even then, why are they talking about this guy when they haven't even got a suspect? Like, they don't even have anything on the guy.
Yeah.
It's very weird to me that they would be going in public and talking about it this openly on television when they have nothing and just scaring the shit out of people.
Yeah, it's not like remember the Bruce MacArthur murders? I think we talked about this last time we talked about Gorgonzola.
Yeah.
But that was like, they only brought it to the public's attention when it became evident that people were in danger.
Right.
But I don't think people are in danger here because the murderer is specifically
so convoluted
on specific people. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they turn it off because Cam is like, okay, whatever. I've seen enough. Like, I don't need to see Sweets talk about Gorgonzola anymore. And then so they're like, okay, well, we kind of have a bit of a problem because we need to investigate this murder, but the platform, like our forensic platform, is also a crime scene because that's where the package was given. So we have like a where do we go from here kind of situation. They call it a paradox. So Booth ends up just being like, you know what, we need identity first, so let's go for it, I guess. He kind of gives them free reign, and then they just barge onto the platform.
It was like, so funny. Okay. Like, once Cam's like, okay, what do you need, Booth, to start this investigation? Because he's in a quandary, like, okay, how do I let them on the platform to do their investigation, but I don't want them to compromise. I don't know why this is a crime scene, honestly. It's just like where evidence showed up. I don't know why it would be considered a crime scene. Maybe somebody with more experience in this area would be able to tell me. But
yeah,
when they barge onto the platform, it made me laugh. I love that scene because he's like, I need an identity. So Cam goes, okay, let's go. So they burst through the yellow tape and they all like start like rhubarb. They're all discussing about what to do. And Booth's like being completely ignored. And he's like, okay, guys, I guess just call me when you find something. And he's like, leaves. Also, question. I have a question.
I do too. So I wonder if our question's the same. Go.
When we arrived at the JI, when Booth and Brennan were bickering about the funeral, he was wearing his uniform from the funeral.
Yes.
Then they found the box with the mandible and the screws. Then Booth's wearing jeans and a leather jacket and a t-shirt. Is it the same day?
For sure the same day. I suspect that he changed at the lab. That was my thinking.
Why? Is his clothes in his car? I have questions like this. Also, they literally this is my whole thing. They literally just had this funeral for Booth. They should be out getting drunk together because they're so happy he's not dead. Like, they should just be like, woo, and just having a party. They shouldn't be at work. Like,
I feel like they feel so betrayed by him.
No,
right now.
Nobody does. Just Brennan. Everybody else is fine with it.
Fair. Okay, my question was not the same. My question was,
what's your question?
Isn't this an easy crime to solve? Why don't we just look at the cameras that are probably all over this building and find out who put that box there?
Also, yeah, was there an address on it?
Oh, it was just her name and it was on the platform. And the platform requires a key card to get onto it. So,
but not even that. It's like they would have. Okay, then I have more questions after later, okay?
Yes.
Okay, next, let's go.
I know, sorry.
Because the next scene is insane.
Okay. I love this scene. Okay, so Brennan, the next scene, Booth is taking a bath, and he has this, like, helmet thing on so that his beer doesn't get cold, and he can just
drink beer helmet.
Straw. So he's wearing a beer helmet. He's lounging in the tub with not enough bubbles, and Brennan is breaking and entering into his apartment.
No, she
barges in the door, in, and is like, "What the hell? Why did you not tell me that you were dead?" And is like so upset with him, and he's like, "Oh my god, how did you get in here? Why are you in my bathroom right now?" Anyway, it obviously is not very long after he was shot because he still has like he has a bandage.
Yes.
Little bandage on his shoulder. Kind of shoulder. He is also smoking a cigar, which
Okay, Brittany. He has
I'm ruining
a beer.
This.
Listen,
tell me.
He has you're not. I just want to point out while you're saying this. He has a beer helmet on. He's smoking a cigar. There is a record player in his bathroom playing rock and roll music. He's reading a comic book. I'm like, okay, we get it. He's a bachelor. Like, really? It's over the top and ridiculous. There's no way Booth takes baths, first of all. Second,
he might.
No. Not unless he has sore muscles.
He's a shower kind of guy.
He's definitely a shower guy. I would ask David Boreanaz himself.
Do you prefer showers or baths? What about you? Do you prefer showers or baths?
Here's the thing about me. I prefer showers.
Same. Big time.
I
actually don't like the bath.
I feel bored in a bath. I feel okay, great. Now what?
Same with me. And then I'm like not that comfortable either. I'm not like
you
comfortable
go
enough that I can just sit
all
back.
of this. You go through all the fucking rigmarole. You clean the tub. You got the salts. You got the hot water. You wait for it to fill up, and then you sit in it, and you're like, okay, now what? Plus, I spent my whole childhood I was very poor growing up. I'm very poor right now as well, just so you know. I was very poor, and we used to only have baths. I didn't have a shower growing up. We shared the bath water, and it was like, I'm not a bath person. I have an aversion to them.
I'm just not. I think exactly what you said about getting bored. Like, I can't just sit there. I can't turn my brain off. So then I'm just sitting there and I'm like,
I'm like, okay, I got to do shit. Let's go.
Okay. Even like, I love reading. Like, I love reading in bed, but reading in the bath, I don't know. I have to be in like a specific mood. Like if Mark were to run a bath for me and like set it all up for me, that's a different story. But I'm not going to go out of my way to like, and I would like that, but I'm not going to go out of my way to set up my own bath. Greg loves baths. Mark does too.
My ex-boyfriend, I would run him baths all the time.
Yeah.
Ren's husband, she has a very special bathtub just for him because he takes a bath every day. He loves it.
Really? Oh my God. Well, to each their own, I guess.
So why do you have a hot tub?
I like the hot tub. A hot tub I don't mind. Because I can kind of like swim around in it. I don't sit still. I just like bounce from one thing to the next. There's 4 different jets.
Okay.
I just move around. Anyway.
So tell me why Brennan's mad.
For very long. Okay, Brennan is pissed. Because she is like, okay, no, this is not the point, Booth. You're telling me that you told other people to tell me that you were alive, but that's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility to pick up the phone and tell me that you're alive. You've always broken protocol for other things to make sure I was safe and be communicative with me. Why is this an exception? So he's like, fine, next time I dial, I promise I'll tell you. Like, jeez.
No, the funniest part is that he gets mad at her and back. He's reacting to her yelling at him. So he stands up in his bathtub. He's totally naked. And he's like, I took a bullet for you. And she goes, yeah, once. That's not, that only goes so far.
And he's standing there with everything out.
He's out and about, and she's like, she looks at him and she looks at his dick. Obviously, she looks at his dick fully. a few times in this scene.
Definitely.
And she says, like, do you want a towel? And he doesn't. He sits back down in the bathtub.
Yeah, he's like just so annoyed. They're having this moment where, in my mind, as much as I hate what Sweets is saying, it's so true that she is like, this moment, this experience where she thinks that he died really shows how much she cares about him.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
it's a hilarious scene.
It's not just that, but because after he sits back in the bathtub, he capitulates a little bit to her. He bends to her a little bit and admits that he should have told her that he wasn't dead. And he asks her, do you want me to find out why you weren't told? And then she does this thing where she's like, well, if it's important to you, go ahead. Like, she's very that's a very weird way to get attention. It's a kind of a manipulative way, codependent way to get attention. And then he's sitting there in the bathtub, opens up his comic book, and she's like, what are you reading? Like, they're just like, and he's like, I'm reading a novel. I'm reading a novel, he says. It's more like a graphic novel, okay?
Like, get off of me, man.
And then she's like, I commend you for your non-Puritan. Like, she's basically complimenting him for not being shy about being naked in front of her.
It's so funny. But she's seen him naked before. I'm
also,
pretty sure.
It's David Boreanaz as if he'd be shy about being naked.
Definitely not.
Give me a break. Do you know who you're dealing with?
Exactly. Oh my god. Anyway, the scene was hilarious. No, why are you sorry? The scene was hilarious. It was ridiculous.
So funny.
We get back to the lab and we have this experience with Zach and HODGINS and Cam, and they're trying to look at this mandible and the markings on the mandible to figure out the tooth marks or what was going on. They come to the conclusion that the cannibal, or the person who is eating the flesh off this mandible, must have been wearing dentures. They think homemade dentures. And they also get the DNA results back, and it's that of the lobbyist, is the word I was looking for before. So they've confirmed that it was in fact the lobbyist that saw being taken by the apprentice the last time we saw a Gorgonzola episode.
Stabbed while he was putting his coat away.
Like, poor guy. Anyway. So they think that they can do some experiments to figure out more about this set of dentures. They want to recreate the plastic cannibal dentures. Cam, it's so funny how far she's come from when she first started the lab, and she was like, stop doing experiments. You can't do experiments. And now she's like, okay, you want to do an experiment, don't you? Yeah, go do your experiment.
I just have to say, Cam is being... First, she calls Boots to say we got the DNA results. He's draining his bath. I guess Brennan had just left. She's like, what's that sucking sound? He's like, shut up. And he hangs up on her like he's all upset. I
forgot about that.
He just had this weird interaction with Brennan, and now Cam's giving him a hard time, and he's all mad. But then Cam I just have to say, she's so weird in this episode. Her character is I don't know who she is in this episode because she's very like, you go ahead, you two. You go make your serial killer dentures. Have a good time. She's being very jovial and like, it's okay. Oh, we had a crazy serial killer, right, guys? Waka waka waka. And I'm just like, oh my god. Like she's the director of this forensics lab, man. Like, get it together.
I'm just realizing, because every episode that we've talked about, I've been talking about how few times Zach and HODGINS have had scenes together in the last, like, the whole season, basically. Right. But this scene in particular is kind of a bit of a throwback, because I can't remember the last time they did an experiment together.
They were so excited, chomping at the bit to do this. It was so funny because the way they were like, can we please? Like, they were acting like kids asking to get ice cream or something. They were so funny about it.
I'm also realizing, I think the last time was when they took the turkey and used the gelatinous matrix, which was like 4 episodes ago. So it wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago. You're right.
But still, they have not been together for many experiments this season. So it just seemed like a little out of place, but welcomed, I guess, that they're doing this, because it's a little childish, but very sweet that they're getting along and enjoying each other's company. Okay. Do you want to take this away? Talk about us going down to the basement of the Jeffersonian?
Right. So after we leave,
they're off getting their experiment ready.
They're doing their experiment, right? The tone is very strange. So next we have Sweets. He's down in the Gorgonzola. Is that how you say it? Gorgonzola. So Sweets is down in the vault, the Gorgonzola vault, with Booth and Brennan. And Sweets is encouraging them to put the jawbone they received into the skeleton that they have in the vault. And Brennan's like, screw that. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
And then Sweets, I agree, is very annoying in this episode, where he keeps asking them during their conversations, did you see me on TV? Did you see me on TV? Did you see me on TV? And I was like,
isn't that great?
They don't care about him being on TV at all. And then this is where Sweets finds out that Brennan burst into Booth's bathroom and Booth was naked and blah, 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 blah. And he's judging Booth because he was naked in the bath doing things, and Booth's like, hey, wait a minute, she burst into my bathroom and you're gonna judge me for being naked in my own bathroom? Like, no, Irena can't do that.
I agree.
We swing back to the experiment room with HODGINS and Zach, and they're trying to recreate the homemade dentures using a particular chemical compound, and that apparently was found in the jawbone. And they're doing a bunch of science talk. And while they're doing the science talk, we switch back to Booth and Brennan and Sweets. They're all talking about how Brennan saw Booth naked. And then we switch back to the experiment room where HODGINS is with Zach, and he's going to hand some chemicals to Zach after they have this little thing where Zach is insisting that he do the actual handling of the chemicals and the physical mixing. So HODGINS says, whatever, I guess I have to suck this up because you've been declared king of the lab by everybody. So he accepts it. Zach is behind one of those protective screens. He's wearing protective gloves. Everybody's all suited up. Then he mixes some powder into another compound in front of the screen. And then all of a sudden, bang, there's a huge explosion. And everybody's freaking out, starts running towards the experiment room. And HODGINS is fucked up, but then they look over at Zach, and he's so messed up. His hands are almost completely blown off his body.
It is so horrifying. Like,
it's wild.
Your heart just sinks, because Zach, as weird as he's a favorite. Like, he has been, at least for the first 2 seasons, he was such a sweet character and someone that you really, really grew to love, in my opinion. I think a lot of people grew to love him. So it's really sad to see him in this insane predicament. He uses his hands for his job. So this could be a career-ending moment for him.
Terrible.
So we end up in the ICU, and Brennan's there sitting beside the bed, and Booth is standing with her. Zach is obviously laying in the hospital bed. They're trying to figure out how this possibly could have happened.
Yeah.
Angela, Hodgins, and Cam come by. Zach has severe injuries. It becomes apparent, at least during this scene, that this is not the kind of injury that he can recover from without having to use prosthesis in the future.
Right.
So anyway, so they're just, you can tell Hodgins is really upset because he feels like he's done something wrong, because he feels
he's trying to
figure out how it could happen. Yeah.
He's sciencing his way around it. He's like, okay, what the hell did we do? How do we mix it? Blah, blah, blah. But Booth's like, you know what? Let's not talk about this now. Like, let's let him rest and all this. So they all decide to have a schedule so that they can have a rotating visitation from everybody.
Yeah, and which Zach is like, that's not necessary. Like, you don't need to be here every moment, Cam. That's really nice that you want to be.
Very nice of Cam. Her voice also in this moment, Cam goes up an octave. Like, she starts talking very sweetly. And it's just like, Cam, you are unrecognizable, A. B. Yeah. Where is Zach's huge family? Like, where is his family in this moment? Well,
I feel like this is like immediately after it happens. We don't see them at all through this whole episode. So I agree with you that it's unrealistic that they wouldn't show up for him.
Yeah.
But Cam, I will say, I think Cam showing that she really cares about Hodgins and using this higher pitch voice didn't surprise me, because I thought they kind of built up to this throughout the season, that she's become very close with him. A lot of the work, Hodgins hasn't been with him as much. It's been a lot of scenes of Cam and Zach, and Cam and Zach, Cam and Zach. So I think she's going to take this particularly badly, especially since she finally just let up about them doing experiments.
I know.
She's like, okay, yeah, go ahead. No problemo. So Zach won't be alone. He's never going to be alone.
Never.
Someone is always going to be with him because everyone is so wonderful. So Brennan kisses him on the forehead and then leaves, and Angela and Zach are left there, just the two of them at the end of the scene.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So,
it's awful.
Back at the lab.
This episode moves very quickly. I don't know if you want to talk about this next scene or if you want me to.
Yeah, it's a kind of an interesting, fun scene with Sweets and Hodgins. Sweets is hanging out with Hodgins while Hodgins is trying to figure out what went wrong. And this is where we learn that while Hodgins is trying to figure out what went wrong, we look over this. I love this. It was an interesting directorial kind of switch over, because while Hodgins is over there figuring out the chemicals, we learn that there's a guy from the FBI doing the exact same thing, like right next to him, but Hodgins doesn't trust him. He's like, screw that, I don't trust the FBI. He's talking all his paranoid talk, right? It's really,
so
really
loudly.
Funny.
He's not keeping this quiet. This guy's like, what's your problem?
I know. But no, the FBI guy I thought was great.
He was awesome.
I thought he was so fun. And then Hodgins is like explaining to Sweets why he's paranoid. And then we do a rundown, and he's not wrong. He's talking about secret societies and cannibalism and all these things. And yeah, we have a serial killer on the loose who's doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then he figures out that there was a different chemical agent mixed into the stuff that they were using when they were, doing their experiment that wasn't supposed to be there. And then the FBI agent, like, Hodges doesn't want to say what it is to the FBI guy, but then the FBI guy goes, it's this chemical. And Hodges goes, yeah, it is. So they agree that it's the same. It's kind of good they had two people agreeing that it's the same chemical,
It was good, but it's also at this, like, it doesn't answer why.
No, it's very weird. It's kind of left. It's very strange that this apparently, I don't know from chemicals, but apparently it's very strange that this particular blend of chemicals would be together. Anyway.
Exactly.
Regardless.
So there's a little bit of a filler that to me, the B plot of this episode is finding out why Brennan wasn't told that Booth was not dead. That was kind of our B plot.
The B plot isn't just that. It's Booth and Brennan's relationship. It's all about this thing where
this dynamic.
They're figuring out how important they are to each other.
Yes. Which obviously we all know and have known for the last 3 seasons. But okay.
Obviously.
Finally catch on. Maybe they'll finally make out. Anyway, so maybe they'll finally get together. So Sweets is just chatting on the phone, and he's talking to someone on the phone saying to cancel his patients. And anyway, so Booth is like, hey, like, get your ass over here. We're going to talk to Brennan right now. So they go, and Booth is like, you need to tell her. Like, tell her right now. And Sweets is like, what are you talking about? Okay, fine, I'll tell her, says Booth. And so we find out that the list that Booth had given to the Bureau of people that he wanted to know that he was alive was given to Sweets. And Sweets made the decision not to tell Brennan that he was alive. Yeah. And once she finds this out, she's like, oh, it was a national security issue? Yeah, you know what? That was a good choice. I was able to handle his death, no problem. And Booth is like, what the hell?
Booth is trying to get Brennan to punch Sweets the way she punched him at the funeral.
Yes.
She's like, give him a punch. Go for it, because he lied to you. Anyway, it's really funny. But then logically, like, Brennan's like, yes, I understand. I compartmentalize. He made the right decision. And Booth is so, like, he can't believe this is happening.
He's flabbergasted.
While they're having this bickering, Cam interrupts him and says, you got to come to the Gorgonzola vault right now. And then Sweets tells Brennan he does this stupid thing where he's telling Brennan that Booth is trying to seduce her with all this offers of pie all the time that she keeps refusing. They all go down to the vault, but as everyone goes ahead of them, Brennan pulls Sweets aside. I absolutely love this scene. This again is about Booth and Brennan's relationship. I really like it because she says to him, you think I don't know an experiment when I see one? She's like, she basically says, I know that you didn't tell me because you were experimenting to see how I would react. We agreed to let you observe us. We made a deal with you. And you can't do that again. Like, she's saying, don't do it. Because if Booth knows that you did that, he's going to beat the hell out of you. And you're not going to like that. So I think Sweets got the message this time. I loved it. I thought it was so good.
Oh, yeah, Sweets. But also, this is kind of part of the experiment. Like, the way that she's reacting, being like, listen, it's nice that you think that you could get away with this, but you can't. Like, this game is over. I love that.
It is
the way
also
she put him in this place.
But she put him in this place, but it's like if he fucks up again, he's not gonna have access to them. So all this fun and games isn't gonna, because Sweets in this episode, and we'll talk about it later, but I'll say it here.
Yes.
He's acting a little bit too like big for his britches. He's just like acting too. He's very arrogant. He's pretending he's the smartest person in the room, you know? Not even pretending. He believes he's the smartest person in the room.
Well, he has the arrogance of someone with the education that he has, but he's never
at
really
22
shown
years
this.
Old.
Yeah, so his personality in this episode is how you would expect him to have been all along, but he's never been this person. So it's totally out of character. So OMG. Oh my God.
What happened?
So Cam has them enter the vault and the skeleton is gone. And they're like, how the hell could the skeleton be gone? There's sensors everywhere. There are cameras everywhere. Excellent point. How did the mandible get on the platform to begin with, Sweets? Anyway, so turns out that everything was working fine. The explosion happened. Once the explosion happened, the computer system went completely down. So all the cameras, everything went completely down.
Security was all shut off. Yeah, exactly.
Security was all shut off. All the guards, because it's a chemical accident, had to go and attend to that scene to make sure that there's no loss of life. So at that time, between 12:03 and 12:18, so 15 minutes, Gorgon's lab was completely defenseless. And so they come to the conclusion during the scene, which is absolutely bonkers. Thank you, season finale of season 3. That the person who stole this skeleton had to have been someone who works at the lab.
Or it was an inside job. So they were working with somebody in the lab too, because they also noticed, or they mentioned, that the loading dock was open.
Yes.
Security systems down. So they think the explosion was a diversion so that the person could remove the skeleton. So
exactly.
It's crazy. And then
absolutely insane.
Booth gets on the horn with the FBI and says, okay, bring my own team here because this place is compromised.
Yeah.
My question is, why wasn't that done in the first place?
I think at first that I think at first they were there, but then Booth dismisses them because like the mandible was on the platform, and there were a couple FBI guys that were
I mean, when they first got the vault in the first place, they should have had the FBI all over it. Like,
yeah, you would think so.
It's weird that
the FBI should have had its own forensics team as well, working the area the whole time
together, like in the lab.
I agree.
Shit.
You come up with excellent points. So Cam is walking through a couple hours later. Cam is walking through the vault with some forensic guy and also Caroline. So Caroline's there, and Caroline is like, listen, she calls her Dr. Soroyan. She doesn't call her Cam. She says, Dr. Soroyan, if you need to discuss anything with the text, don't talk to them. Come talk to me and I will deal with them. And that's when Cam is like, oh my God. Like, I get it because I was a cop. But like, am I a suspect? Are the people in the lab suspects?
The fact that Cam is acting, of course they are. Cam is acting like she doesn't know what's going on. They literally said it was an inside job, and she's up everybody's ass going, what do you got? What do you got? Did you find anything? And Caroline's like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, Cam gets all pissed off and storms off and is like, okay, well, use your like 30 agents that you have here then to find something. Like, solve this case. Like, okay, Caroline with the nice eyes, get it done.
Cam is not being herself.
No, she's not. But I can see why she might be flustered. Okay. We end up at the Royal Diner. And do you want to talk about this?
Listen. I have a couple things here. Booth and Brennan are at the diner. Brennan, they're having coffee. And Brennan keeps talking about how Booth isn't ordering any pie. Why doesn't he have any pie? Get some pie. He's like, shut the fuck up. I don't want any pie. Leave me alone with the pie. Sweets walks in with a bunch of, I assume, confidential files of all the Jeffersonian staff, specifically Brennan's team.
Yeah.
And basically, and Brennan's like, are you spying on us? It's like, well, no, everybody's a fucking suspect. So then Sweet says he thinks HODGINS is Gorgon.
Which is
Brennan
seems not that insane.
No. Brennan is so upset about this, and she like takes off, basically.
Yeah.
And so does Booth. Booth's like, screw you, Sweets. And Sweets is like, what? We got to find this guy. He's a serial killer. It's like, yeah, you should have been finding him months ago.
Yes.
So they abandon Sweets at the Royal Diner. Again, this is like the second episode in a row where they just leave Sweets alone in the diner with a bunch of files that are confidential from his like psych evaluations at the Jeffersonian, but whatever.
Sweets has been right so many times before though, and when I'm watching this scene, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. It actually makes sense what Sweets is saying. Like it doesn't seem out of left field at all. And Kelly doesn't like HODGINS, so he must be a killer. So
Even I didn't think Hodgins was the killer. But anyway.
No, it all makes sense, but it's like almost too perfect.
But this is where, yeah, no, I agree. But this is where the show takes a turn, and it starts being very like there's a movie like this where it's like everyone's a suspect. It's like Hercule Poirot or Agatha Christie, like one of those like they're being paranoid and they're whispering in corners about each other, and like it just happens. Like it's a funny sort of transition into this place of like paranoia.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I think it's interesting.
That's exactly what's happening here. Sweets points out that this would have to be done by someone very calculated.
Yeah.
And that Booth questions that it could be Hodgins because Zach is disfigured because of this explosion. Because Booth is saying, well, they're like Zach and Hodgins are very good friends. Hodgins would never do this to Zach. But Sweets is not so sure that that's the case. That he has this different view of Hodgins. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to see what happens.
Here we go. Back at the lab. Now so we get this other conversation.
Yes. Go. And you tell me more.
Oh, just Brennan and Booth go back to the lab and Cam comes and talks to them. And then Brennan says to Cam, she goes, Sweets thinks Hodgins is a killer. And Cam's like, yeah, that makes sense because he's trying to take the suspicion off himself. So Cam thinks it's Sweets. And they're all like, oh, yeah, because this happened and that happened, A, B, C, D. And I was just like, oh, my God, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, but it's crazy. Like, Sweet says what he says. And I'm like, okay, no, it can't be Hodgins. Like, that's ridiculous.
I love how they all suspect each other. I think it's great.
Yes, I think it's great. It's very interesting. Sweet's just coming in at the beginning of this season and then them thinking it could be that he could be Gorgonzola. I'm like, maybe that makes sense. Like, anyway, so we're going to stay at the lab. We're going to be in Cam's office. And this seems like perfect time for this conversation to happen. It is pitch black in her office. Apparently she doesn't work with lights anymore. And Hodgins he doesn't knock. He just kind of walks in and stands there. She wishes that he had knocked because Hodgins is standing there and scares the shit out of her. Exactly. So he is aware that people suspect that he is Gorgonzola, and he does not take that very lightly. He has found something in his testing that basically traces back to something happening where he lives. And it becomes
where the jawbone was boiled. He says basically this area of the city is where you will find this kind of water with that chemical composition.
Exactly.
And it's around where he lives.
Tap water. Like literally that's his neighborhood.
Yeah.
So he's like, listen, Cam, I could have kept this to myself. She's like, yeah, but then it would have made you look guilty. And he's like, yeah, but I could have just left my neighborhood out and I could have done this, but I'm trying to help. And if you need me, I'm going to be at my station. I'm going to keep helping. And then that's about it. That's their conversation. And it is so creepy. They're really trying to lay it on that it's Hodgins.
Well, Hodgins is like putting himself like, yes, I'm just telling you, if I was a suspect, would I come and tell you this? Like he's trying to sort of absolve himself, but also Cam's like, yeah, but then it would be good to tell me to sort of like make you seem innocent. And it's just like very interesting, even though Cam thinks it's sweet. So
it's still a creepy conversation in the dark because apparently she doesn't work with lights, as we said. So after their conversation with Cam, presumably, now Booth and Brennan have gone back to the Royal Diner and they meet up with Sweets.
They don't meet up with him. They ambush him.
Ambush him, exactly. They ambush him and they started to ask him some questions. They're like, hey, where were you after the explosion? What were you doing? Why were you doing this? Why were you doing that? And then he catches on. He's like, oh, oh, what I did after the explosion, I went down to the vault. I stole the silver skeleton, and oh yeah, no, I'm Gormagon's apprentice. That's why I did all these things. And they're like, oh, like, I guess we can lock you up. Was that a confession? And he's like, what the hell? Like, okay, you're gonna have to, you're insane and you're projecting, and you're gonna have to, like, if you want to take me down to the station or whatever, like, I'm not gonna go without a fight. So, like, what's your problem? He's very offended that they would think that he could possibly have done something like this. It starts out as all fun and games, and then he's like, oh, like, you guys are assholes.
Yeah.
Basically.
And then we cut to the hospital. HODGINS is meeting up with Angela there. They're trying to convince him to take some painkillers. They have a little bit of a, oh, isn't Zach sweet moment. Maybe he says something red flaggy, probably. I don't know. Then we go back to the lab, and then Cam scares the shit out of Brennan this time by bursting into her office. You know, when you're just sitting there all quiet, and then somebody goes, hey, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're like, oh my God. So Brennan, in this moment, figures out that the jawbone was treated for long-term storage with UV light, and she thinks that the rest of the bones of belonging to the lobbyist are actually in the Jeffersonian long-term storage, or what we call limbo. We were introduced to limbo in season 2, I think.
Okay. Also, Kelly, I know you didn't really want to talk about that scene, but that scene had me questioning my thinking
at the
that
hospital
HODGINS didn't do it. Yes.
Oh, why? What did he say?
Because, okay, it wasn't even really what he said, and it was kind of what he did, because so Zach is sleeping, and he walks in, and Zach wakes up. Angela's there, and Angela's telling HODGINS that Zach has not wanted any medication. He doesn't want any painkillers, nothing.
Right, right.
And he's like, you know what? I think sometimes you gotta step in and be a friend. And every time that Zach tries to speak, he just keeps hitting the painkillers. So he's unable to form any sort of, like,
you're right.
sentence.
Actually, I forgot about that he basically drugged Zach without his consent.
And I was like, holy shit, I didn't think HODGINS did it.
I didn't even think of that. That's
did he?
So good. Wow.
I was like, oh my God. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to come back to that very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But I love this next scene.
So the next scene, we go to limbo. This is a big archive of all these bones from hundreds of years, and they have all these grad students that are up for whatever kind of internship jobs with the Jeffersonian, maybe eventually. Maybe you recognize some of them, Brittany. I don't know if they come back.
I didn't. No, I thought for sure, because next season we do get introduced to a lot of students.
Right.
That's not really a spoiler. That it's just like a change up to how they do things.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I'd recognize some faces, and none of them are people who come back, and I was so disappointed by that.
But what a lucky day for an actor to come in. They got to shoot for a few hours. They get a few lines, like, so good. Like, you know, make a few like extra bucks just talking science. Really cool. Regardless,
it's really cool.
They let these students loose in the archive, and they end up finding a whole bunch of bones that make up a full body of this lobbyist that they lay out on display on the bone table. A couple of students come forward with all their findings. They're extra keen, but my favorite one was the one there. Brennan follows her to the table. She's like, yes, we've already set up the bones and as they're anatomically correct. And Brennan's like, wow, that's very impressive. And she said, yes, well, I'm third in my class. And Brennan goes, oh, I'd like to meet the two people ahead of you.
I wrote down that too. I was like, this girl looks so disappointed.
Sick burn. Seriously. It took Greg 10 minutes to figure out what that meant. Like, he's like, why did she say that? What does she mean by that? What does that mean? And I was like, and I tried to explain it to him. It took him so long to figure it out. And he's like, oh. I was like, yeah, because she says this girl's good, but imagine how good those guys are, you know?
Exactly. Wow. You're really good, but 1 and 2 must be like really
1
great.
and 2 must be primo. Regardless, they a couple things happen here because the students found all the bones and they have to check the DNA. Obviously, Caroline's there as well, and she's very excited about finding out if this is the lobbyist, and they all kind of agree that it's quite possible. But then this other guy says, "Brennan, I got something really weird over here," and he shows her a bunch of skulls where one particular tooth has been removed from each of those skulls. And I thought, oh, okay, so perhaps those teeth were used to make these man-made, homemade dentures. But they have to, like, she's not sure, but she has to check, right? Like, she's not sure.
Yeah. That's their thinking, which is insane. And Brennan runs out of the room because she's like, oh, holy shit, I need to look at the mandible that Zach was working on before the explosion.
Yeah.
She has this kind of epiphany moment, which
she has a theory, but she's not sure, and she makes her very upset because she's like, wait a minute. So then we move on to the next scene. But while you're talking about this, I'll bring up this thing that I want to bring up about this.
Okay.
Go on.
So we jump to the next scene in Cam's office, and Caroline and Cam are there, and they confirm that the DNA has matched. DNA and the dental records have matched the lobbyist. So they know for sure that this body that they've put together is in fact the body of the lobbyist, which is absolutely insane, and more proof that someone in the lab is involved, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So Brennan is re-examining this mandible that Zach was looking at before this whole explosion incident, and is on the forensic platform. And Cam and Brennan have a moment where it becomes very apparent to each other, at least to me, that something is not as it seems. Because Brennan is realizing that Zach has made a mistake, that he told them something that was untrue. And Caroline and Cam are like, well, okay, you know what? Like, mistakes happen, whatever. But Cam and Brennan are in agreement that it's not often that Zach would make a mistake like this. And it's very unlikely he would make a mistake in this particular situation. So it appears that Zach has been lying to them. And so she's on her computer back in her office when Booth walks in. Yes.
Okay. While you were talking, I didn't pay attention to anything you said, but
that's okay.
I commend you on you continuing the flow. But I wanted to show you the photograph that Cam brings up of the lobbyist.
Okay.
It's basically a still from the last time he was on the show.
Oh, it totally is. It's not just like a regular picture.
It's not a regular picture. It's like a picture, a still from a.
It's like a screenshot.
Yeah.
It made me laugh.
It made me laugh because I was like, "Oh my god, that picture is so funny."
I didn't even notice that. Oh my god,
so funny. Okay, where are we?
Okay, so where we are is a very emotional moment for me, for you, and for Booth and Brennan.
Okay,
mainly for Brennan, because Brennan is in her office. She's on her computer and Booth walks in, and Zach and Booth is like, "Oh, I heard Zach was wrong about the dentures," and she's like, No, he knew what he was telling me, and
he lied.
Zach lied to me, and it's Zach, Booth. Zach is the killer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at this moment, and even just talking about it, like, I got goosebumps because I was like, even though I knew, because Zach is a fan favorite, so we're gonna talk a bit later.
You say that a lot. We're gonna talk about this in a second.
We are.
Go on.
Okay. So obviously now they're gonna go to the ICU where Zach is, and they're gonna have to talk to him.
Right. So next scene.
Yes.
Cam is reading to Zach. She's reading. I looked at the title. It's called The Functional Theory and Nonlinear Wave Patterns. It's like a science publication that she's reading out loud to him. She's having difficulty. She's being very cute about it. I am finding it a little unsettling how sweet and cute Cam is being in this moment. And I appreciate what you said. I heard you, and I will consider that for future
Okay.
reference.
Fair.
Regardless, Booth and Brennan show up to tell Cam to leave, basically. So they're standing in the doorway and they're being very somber and they're looking at Zach, and Cam knows exactly what's going on. I think Zach knows exactly what's going on. And within like very short period of time, like seconds, he admits to everything immediately. And he had this big plan where he was going to escape from the hospital, but they just would not leave him alone. Like everybody kept visiting him, so he didn't have a chance to like run away.
Yeah.
But Booth is being
sorry, he also didn't realize how bad his injuries were going to be. So he thought it was going to be this little explosion, but it was going to be big enough that it was going to cause this disruption that he needed to cause. And then he would be injured, but it wouldn't be like he'd heal from it and he would just sneak out.
Right. So Booth is being very insistent that he tell him the identity of Gorgonzola. He's like, just tell me his name, tell me his name, tell me his name. Zach is acting a little bit brainwashy in this moment,
very
arguing about how wonderful Gorgonzola is, and so
how logical.
Booth is insisting on telling the name, and Zach is, fighting back a little bit. So Brennan puts the kibosh on that and starts to have a logic off with Zach.
Yeah.
Like talking about the logic behind all of his decisions leading up to this point. And at the end of the day, Brennan points out a flaw in his logic because Zach risked the whole thing. He risked the whole plan because he didn't want to risk HODGINS' safety.
Yeah.
So then he capitulates and he tells Booth, like, I don't know the guy's name, but I don't even know the address, but I will tell you this. He describes in great detail, because he remembers when he got placed into the trunk of this dude's car, how fast he was going, what distance he went, the smells, the places, all the details of the house that he went to. And while this is happening, while he's describing in detail the house and how to get to Gorgonzola, we see Booth and all the FBI kind of SWAT team guys arrive at the location, go into the house, and then what happens?
And then there's all these candles in this room that is sunken in. It looks like a cathedral, but it's supposed to be in some dude's house. And this super extremely tall, lanky guy with the creepy dentures. He's wearing the creepy dentures, and I guess he's eating some human flesh. And anyway, he whips this knife at some poor FBI agent and stabs him. But at the end of the day, there's all these guys with guns and just gives them an excuse to shoot him. And presumably he's dead. But we have been talking this whole time because I kept talking about how creepy Zach was being and how weird he was being. But it was only and I don't know the timeline here, but he says that the master, aka Gorgonzola, approached him 3 months ago only at a symposium on burning plasma diagnostics. So it's only been 3 months that he's been his apprentice.
When did he kill the lobbyist?
Well, that's the thing. Is he the same apprentice? Is that apprentice? Because we zoomed in on that guy's face and it was definitely not Zach.
But maybe it was a guy that kind of looked like Zach,
Maybe. Like close enough. Anyway, so the timeline is unclear, but Zach obviously has serious issues. And anyway, so they got him. They killed
Gorgonzola, and then next we have a scene at the hospital where basically Caroline is in the hospital room with Zach and she's receiving his confession.
Yeah.
And she comes out of the hospital room. Everybody's there. HODGINS, Angela, Cam, Booth, Brennan. Well, Booth shows up sort of midway through the conversation, and Caroline, Sweets is there too. And Caroline says that they're going to made a deal with Zach, and they're going to put him in a psych ward, like a psych hospital. And then Sweets starts arguing that Zach isn't crazy. And then Booth arrives there and grabs Sweets and says, "Shut the fuck up, Sweets. Like,
Yeah.
let
Like,
them
give this to Bones.
like give it," because Brennan's so upset about this. Like, she was like, he was her protege, right?
Yeah. He looked up to her so much. And but Caroline hits the nail on the head, because all these people, they worked with him and they admired him and they loved him. But so they're all making excuses for how he could be involved in something so gruesome. But Caroline is like, no, like, this is, you can make every excuse you want in every book. You can claim it's logic, but all that happened here was a strong personality found a weak personality and took advantage of him. So anyway, which is true. Anyway,
100%.
okay. So we have our little send off to Eric Mulligan, basically, in this last scene. So we're saying goodbye to Zach, who they have a box of his stuff. I guess Booth had boxed up his stuff nicely for him. And this is all his favorite stuff. This is all the things that he found most memorable. And they're going through and they're talking about Zach like he's not someone who was involved in a bunch of serial killings. But anyway, so they are talking about all these things, like the King of the Lab trophy and all these things that are memorable to Zach. And each one of them, they're pulling out something that one of them gave him.
Mm-hmm.
Except that Brennan realizes that there's nothing in there from her. She never gave him anything. She never gifted him anything.
Right.
And so she runs off really upset. She's extremely upset. She goes and sits on the stairs, and Booth runs out after her after finding a letter in this box. So he runs off, and then they have a very sweet heart-to-heart moment, which is kind of funny. It's a nice way to end our B plot of their relationship, and a nice change from the very beginning of the episode where she was punching him in the face. And so he reads this letter to her, and it says, "Dear Mr. Addy, it is my pleasure to offer you the post of my intern in forensic anthropology. I chose you from hundreds of applicants because of your knowledge, your desire to learn, and because I feel you will find a home here." And so he tells her, like, you did everything you could for him. He found his home here, and you gave him something great beyond something you can buy for him. And they have this very sweet moment where she places her head on his shoulder, and then he places his head on hers.
Yeah.
And then the screen fades to black. And it was just wonderful.
I'm going to say it here. I'm going to say it now. I'll say it forever. Booth is the greatest friend ever.
He is. He's so good.
Was such a good friend. About her. And even though, like, oh, he should have told her he wasn't dead, he did. He gave a list of people to notify. Like, he followed protocol. He did his job. Like, he did what he was supposed to do. But now it's like, it's even better because, like, now he knows, oh, okay, I need to be more, like, yeah, he just needs to give her more, right? So, okay.
This is a good way to push their relationship forward, I thought. Good way to end the season.
What did you think of this episode?
I love this episode, but it breaks my heart. Okay. I hate that. Well, also, I watched this entire season knowing that Zach was Gorgon's apprentice, which was a little bit rough. But I really, really like Zach's character in season 1 and 2, and I think they did a disservice to his character in season 3 with the way they wrote his character.
Yeah.
They also, I was reading about this today, so I could be a little bit more informed. But in some cases, writers will write a character off of a show at the request of the actor or actress. Yeah. In this case, he did not want to leave the show. It was not his choice to leave the show. They just were in the middle of this writer's strike, and they came up with this brilliant idea as they were filming season 3. And it came up sort of as they were writing season 3. They didn't start with this idea that Gorgon's apprentice was going to be Zach, and they called him into their office. The writers or the showrunners called him into their office earlier in the season as they were filming the episodes, and told him that this is the way that the story was going to go. So I think that that's why his character got weird, because he was told about it before his character had actually met Gormagon. So the acting, like he was acting like he had met Gormagon, but I don't think he actually had. Anyway, so it's disappointing. We'll see if we see him again. I loved his character season 1 and 2. What did you think?
I just don't have the same relationship with Zach that you do.
Okay.
I was never like, he was Zach. I didn't really have an attachment to him.
Okay.
I understand why people liked him, obviously, but this is insane. Like, this whole
Insane.
Like, it's completely out of left field. I think it was definitely a rush job, but you know what? This is not the only season of television that suffered the year of the writer's strike. I remember watching one of the best television shows of all time, The Wire, and their season that ended the year of the writer's strike was crazy. It was crazy what they did to that show. And I don't like this. And the way they found the whole Garmagon thing, I thought there would be more ceremony to it. You know what I mean? Like, it would be somebody really significant. Like, what's his name? Oh my God, the serial killer we love. Shit. Help me, please. Somebody's screaming at us right
bad
now. Oh, I usually remember everything. I'm blaming it all
where the
on,
actor had passed away. The actor has since passed away.
It's blonde.
What is that guy's name?
What's that one? Blonde in the Game. Sorry, I'm looking here. The serial killer named Howard Epps.
Howard Epps. Yes.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm losing it. Anyway, Howard Epps was a big bad. He was a big bad. And Gorgonzola, I mean, he's been teased for how long now? Like, this has been going on. And it's crazy. I found it just so rushed, And yeah, okay, so it suffered because of the writer's strike. I understand all that. But because, the secret society and the cannibalism and the symbolism and blah, blah, blah. Like, it seemed more involved and convoluted. There was so much buildup. And then we end up with this random, lonely weirdo with weird dentures on. How is he convincing people to do this?
Yeah, I don't know. You would think that I would have thought that Zach's character was close enough to Brennan that he would have mentioned it to her.
Or
this weird guy approached me.
This guy, I met this guy at this conference, like nothing. It was
literally nothing.
Anyway, I don't think it was handled perfectly, but what can nothing's perfect, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, I enjoyed, I prefer Booth and Brennan in this place of, I like this. This is like the way they're navigating this dynamic is interesting to me. I like that Booth is so, like, when he was in the bathtub and he yelled at her, he stood up, he's naked, ha ha ha. That was a moment from, I don't know if you know a TV show, it's called Who's the Boss? Have you ever heard of Who's the Boss?
I have heard of, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, it's a classic. So there's Judith Light, Tony Danza, Alyssa Milano, 80s sitcom. And there's a classic moment where she comes out of the bath and he's a nanny that lives in the house, like, as a nanny that lives there with his daughter. He helps her raise. Anyway, she comes out of the bathtub. She's naked. He walks into the bathroom. Oh, it's like a big moment in television, like, history. And it's like, it was like that for me, like when Booth stood up and he was all naked. But then the way he capitulates to her, he defers to her, he bends to her, and he says, I'm sorry, mea culpa. He's always very, very humble. He's like, okay. He's more interested in them having harmony. He doesn't want to fight with her.
Yes.
I like that he's listening to her and he's careful of her feelings, I like that part.
Yeah.
For sure.
And in the same way, she's when we were first introduced her and the way that they present her often is this person who doesn't understand social cues and is socially inept. But when she deals with him, that kind of goes out the window almost now. She seems to, their relationship has developed to a point where she seems to understand him on another level.
She trusts him.
Trust is the right word.
And because he is more flexible, like he's more cognizant of social cues, he's able to sort of, okay, this is what she's doing right now, so I'm going to step back and I'm not going to react. And then she has time to sort of gather herself and try to articulate like what she's really feeling. So I find this, I hope that this continues. I'm looking forward to a deeper connection with those two, like figuring out romance moments. I know they get together, guys, spoiler, whatever. But right now, again, I enjoy way better than I last year with the wedding and all that shit. This season finale for Booth and Brennan specifically, everybody else is kind of meh. Which is too bad, because with Eric Milligan being written off the show like that, it's kind of shitty. Like the send off is kind of shitty. It's like kind of an afterthought, and that's too bad. That's really too bad.
It is too bad. I did like his character, like you said. I feel
you
like
liked him young.
I liked him. Feel like I had a bigger attachment to his character than you did, but and that could be because I am watching it again. And now that because I'm watching this all again with you, that I know that he's missing from the later seasons, and watching again, it's kind of more like I'm reminiscing about him.
I hear what you're saying. I hear you. It's like when I rewatch The Wire, characters are introduced like in season 1 that I'm like, oh my God, like you don't know how much you miss a character until you see them, and you're like, oh, this character like is a game changer, or you're like, I love this arc, I love this story, it's like so well done. So I get it, I totally understand.
I think that's why. Are we gonna start with King of Lab or Lab Rat? Do you want to start with Lab Rat?
King.
Who's your king?
You're asking me?
Yes. I can tell you who mine is. Okay. I think ours is the same.
What is it?
Mine is Booth.
Oh, okay. See, I was worried that I give him the kingship all the time. I do.
This
I
is
give
like
Booth
the first time I have, I think.
But I want to do something different, because I was just thinking as we were talking about it, like just for symbolism's sake, we will give it to Zach. I want to give it to Zach as the king of the lab. Last, you know what I mean? Season ender.
A send-off
as king of the lab, because it's brought up several times. I agree with you, because Booth is an excellent friend in this episode. He's very honest and sincere in all of his interactions with people. I loved him in this episode. He was definitely my favorite. But I think just for symbolism's sakes, I'm going to give it to Zach.
Okay. Fair.
Yes. Who's your lab rat?
Sweets. That guy. He needs to learn when to shut up. I love Sweets. I love that character. But this episode, he was so out of character.
He was a brat.
And he was being such a brat. Yeah, that's exactly it.
It was awful.
So, oh my God. Anyway, I will miss Zach. I'm excited to see where things go next, because we're going to get to know a lot of characters in season 4. Lots of new characters. Zach leaving is obviously disappointing, but it does open up the opportunity for us to get to know new characters. And we might see a few familiar faces that popped up a couple times in the past. Well,
we already know our friend Clark comes back. We talked about this.
Yes.
I was glad to hear that he continues to stay with this show, which is great. I think he's a great addition.
No, Clark being in this episode though, I think, or in this going forward, I think he adds a nice element. Anyway, we'll see. We're gonna get introduced to quite a few new characters, and it's very exciting. Obviously, we're gonna have to see what the impact of Zach's fate is gonna be on all these different squints. So
speaking of Zach, I have a question. I forgot.
Yes.
Did Zach put the mandible package on the platform?
I think so.
That?
Yes.
You believe that he did? Okay.
I think that it's the only way that it could have gotten there, because he would have had to scan his card.
Unless somebody showed up, a messenger just dropped it off. It says, Dr. Brennan, everybody and their dog knows who she is, apparently. She probably has a designated parking spot.
Probably. I do think it was Zach, though.
Okay.
That's my official opinion.
I just was curious.
I think. Anyway, it breaks my heart that Zach is off the show, but moving forward.
Yes.
And onward. So
yes. So we'll say goodbye to season 3. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thanks for listening to this season. We're very excited to get on. The next season is going to be a long one. We're going to see how it really feels to be watch a full season of this show. But any closing remarks for season 3, Brittany?
R.I.P. Zach, even though he's not actually gone. He's just going to an insane asylum. You will be missed.
Yes, we will miss you, Zach Addy / Eric Milligan. It's going to be very weird and different. I'm worried that, I don't know, I think the show's going to have so much money behind it now that it's going to get real flashy. There's going to be crazy special effects. There's going to be more explosions. There's going to be more fire. There's going to be more blood. There's going to be more of everything. They might even leave the country, go on a little road trip or something.
Ooh, you know? That would be a fun twist.
Well, that's like where the money goes, right? When they fly somewhere and film on location. So we'll see.
Like Toronto, Canada.
Ah! Oh my God.
Just an idea.
Yes. On that note, let's say goodbye. Thank you everyone again for listening to this episode of, wait a minute, I have to go back. I apologize. Follow us on Instagram, rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff to help boost our listenership. Maybe eventually we'll get a sponsor to help pay to host this bloody data on some server somewhere in the ether. That would be great if you could help us out. Also, you can email us at squintcastpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on, like I said, Instagram. I had to start a new TikTok because it had been so long since I posted anything. They basically dumped it. So I think it's Squintcast Podcast, but you'll find it if you look up Squintcast on TikTok. Believe me, I'm going to start posting more videos on there too. Anyway, thank you again for listening to this episode of
Squintcast.
Yay! Bye. See you next season. Thank you for listening to Squintcast with me, Kelly Booth, and your new friend, Brittany Elsner. The Bones theme is performed by The Crystal Method. They can be found on Instagram and YouTube at The Crystal Method and at thecrystalmethod.com. Intro and outro music is by Twisterium at Pixabay. Cover art was done by Irena Dolenc-Stajan. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Squintcast. Email us at squintcastpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at fab_empire_ on Instagram and TikTok. Brittany is at Brittany81523 on Instagram. See you next time. HODGINS!